This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
When an adversary stands in front of us, it's easy to prepare for a fight. Whether that fight is physical, verbal, or emotional, we can brace ourselves for the stormy seas that lie ahead, sizing our opponents up and making sure that we have the tools that we need that gives us the best chance for victory. How can we create a battle plan for an invisible enemy? We don't know how big they are, we certainly don't know how many are in their army, and we don't know how to attack. All we can do is prepare the best that we know how and hope that it's good enough. One weapon that should be the first in our arsenal is hope. Without hope, there is no need to fight. Without hope, you have lost the war before it even began. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, and now you can join. Don't forget to ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and also follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. On tonight's episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome Carin Rosado to discuss the suffering of lymphoma. Sort of just gives it away off the bat.
Yeah, but that's the first time someone with a vowel at the end of their name, you got it right away. I mean,
that's because it's not Italian.
I know.
That's the problem. But what you're going to find is sitting in front of me is a warrior who was hit with an unseen battle, but is ready to go on the attack. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, but we do trust them. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car. So, Carin, thank you so much for joining us. I know you watched a couple of our shows, and we try to
and thank you for still coming in after watching our shows.
We take a question from our audience every week. This week's social media question comes from Aries Peace. It says, how has your views of your adversaries changed? Over time, you get stuck in a moment with enemies, and over time, it either elevates or it sort of the volume gets turned down on it. So have any enemies that you've had in the past, how has your views changed?
I think more that it really comes from any angle, right? You don't think that sometimes your loved ones can become your enemies. Yeah. So that's
they become your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
You got that right.
Yeah. And sometimes you gotta take a step back, it comes from care or love, but sometimes it's just they just don't want you to move up in life. They don't want you to grow. They want you to stay stagnant where they are. So that's kind of I think the hardest part when it comes to enemies. But like you said, it grows and it decreases over time. So I think through what I've been with, I've seen a lot more enemies and in places I've never thought that I would be fighting against. And sometimes the enemy got to look inside you too. Like, what am I fighting myself against?
Sometimes we're our own worst enemies.
Yeah,
if you want to, we're our own worst adversaries. Mike, what do you think?
Whether it's time heals all wounds, I don't know, but I'm 57 years old. I don't have much time to hate people anymore.
Yeah.
When, can you give me a time so I can figure that out?
We'll have to call Heather Campbell.
She'll know.
She'll know.
She'll know.
She'll know when I'm going to die.
Yeah.
No, it's just. We've been through so much. It's menial bullshit now. I really don't care.
Yeah.
You don't like me, you don't like me. I'll still get along with you.
Yeah. I think as you grow.
Exactly.
You kind of just learn to kind of ignore them, or sometimes try and send them love and light, which it's hard. It's a lot of practice.
I just let it roll off my back now. It's like, so what?
Well, you've seen that with Mike DePalma, okay? Mike DePalma, he's been on our show numerous times, and, we at one time, the three of us were very, very tight. Mike and I sort of got into it, and we didn't talk for 6 months. It's not that I saw him as an enemy or an adversary, but we just didn't talk. And it really bothered me. And as time moves on, it was a short duration. It wasn't anything long. But as time moved on, I thought to myself, how stupid is this?
Exactly.
And I miss my friend.
Yeah.
But my answer, I've talked about this on the show. The guy who shot at me, I'll say his name openly because I actually want him to contact me. His name's Anthony Vocatoro. He shot at police officers multiple times, shot at me, and kind of put my life into a downward spiral. And for a long time, I hated him because I thought he really destroyed my life. until I was able, and I'm talking probably 7, 8 years after the incident, I started thinking, I'm like, well, and I think it was when we were doing this show, I started thinking, what did that guy have to go through in order to get to that level to shoot at police officers? He wasn't shooting at Kevin Donaldson. That was something I accepted. He wasn't shooting at Kevin Donaldson. He was shooting at police officers. And what was going on in his life where he got to the depths where obviously he didn't want to live anymore. He's shooting at people with guns. But
Not a bright idea.
I got to be honest with you. When I finally got to the point where I forgave him, the weight off of my shoulders was so profound and enormous that I felt free because he didn't have any more power over me. Mm-hmm. So my view has changed vastly over somebody who changed my life vastly. Right. And it was a good thing. You know, believe it or not, getting shot at was a good thing. I'm here with my best friend, and we get to do this show every single week. We get to talk to great people like you.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
So, Aries, thank you so much for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. We are very appreciative of all the questions that you send in. So, Carin, you were introduced to me through a friend of the show, our friend Rory, who is actually in the control room right now.
Unfortunately, he's stuck in there with Drew.
Drew ate tacos, too, and I feel really bad for you.
I brought empanadas in again.
But Carin was so gracious, and you brought in, you did the Italian move, even though you're not Italian.
Yeah.
You brought in food, which, you know, it's always the way to somebody's heart.
Yeah. Well, I am Puerto Rican. The culture is a little bit similar.
Well, so Andrew makes us bring in a certain amount of Puerto Ricans every month.
We reached our quota.
Yeah, we got to hit a quota. But I've spoken to you numerous times. You have this wonderful outlook on life in the face of true adversity. Why don't you give our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 34, I think. I think I'm 34.
Around there.
Don't do the math. Yeah, somewhere around there.
After 40, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it.
I've been a paramedic for a little over 10 years. I'm a baker. I love to bake. I like to do a lot of crafts as like my side hobbies. And I just love spending a lot of time with people I care about, with my friends. It's like a big part of me, just being surrounded by a lot of positive people and family.
Well, I saw some of the things online about some of the crafts you create. What is it about creating crafts that gives you, because it seems like it gives you a little bit of peace.
Yeah.
I was going to say peace of mind.
Yeah. A lot of people, when it comes to craft, they don't have the patience for it. But it does. It's something about figuring out like a puzzle almost, right? So it just gives me a lot of peace, like you said. Like there's crafts that I've taught myself. If anybody is in the cricket world, like that's kind of what I've been doing. And I taught myself how to use it and expand on all the different types of crafts. It's a machine. It's a vinyl cutting machine.
Okay.
So with that, you cut vinyl that you can put on to anything. You put on posters, on shirts, mugs, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We may have to talk after this.
I was going to say, could you make a suffering podcast?
Absolutely.
You know, it's funny. I love, believe it or not, I love to sew.
Oh, nice.
Like, you know, like if you got to rip it.
You lived on your own too long.
That's
exactly what that is, because that's how I know how to sew.
But I just sit there, like if you got a hole in your jeans, I'd sit there and I'd sew it. It was so peaceful to me. Now, threading a needle gets me absolutely out of my mind. I can't thread a needle anymore. And I can't do it.
I need
an obscene amount of patience.
I have to get a new prescription for my glasses.
Yeah.
And I really can't thread a needle now. I got to get one of my kids to do it. I'm like, here, take care of this for me, buddy.
I mean, you close your eye and you're like this, holding it up to the light. I can't do it anymore.
So do you remember when you were going through your darkest times, Mike, things that gave you a little bit of peace?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're hobbies.
Yeah.
You know, a craft is a hobby in essence. And me, like I tried to teach myself everything. I taught myself how to plate braid. Okay, you don't use plate braiding for anything else but bullwhips, and I got 2 of them. I taught myself how to forge metal. I taught myself how to make moonshine, which at the time wasn't a good idea. And it didn't last very long. I know Rory's a big moonshine guy.
An even Spamalot shaking his head at you.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of like an arsonist building his own matches. Yeah, it's really, really bad. But it gives you some peace. It calms you down. Mm-hmm. Were you always crafty growing up?
Yeah, I think my mother's side of the family, it's where all the artistic talent is. They play instruments, they sing, they bake, they do all the other crafts before cricket came into the world. So it kind of got passed down to me. And my mom, being a single mother of 3 girls, like she always was trying to push crafts with us to keep us busy, but also to expand that creativity. So yeah, growing up, I did any little craft that I could get my hand on, and baking from scratch used to be.
Was it to keep you busy or to shut you up?
Both. Definitely both. My mom, yeah, both. Keep us busy.
But that's the cool thing about my kids. Like I'm very sports minded, but I'm also very creative.
Right.
My youngest is ultra creative. He's good at sports.
Yeah.
My oldest is really good at sports, and he does like to create. Like I like to cook. I like to just whatever I find interesting, I'll always try to figure it out. And it occupies me pretty much. It occupies my mind because my mind has a tendency, like it's a Jackson Pollock painting up here.
Yeah.
And that sort of focuses me.
It's a melting pot.
It is. It's bad. It's a Salvador Dali painting.
Yeah. So if you ever try and meditate, it's hard to quiet the mind.
Yeah. Well, I do meditate every day.
Yeah. But in crafts, there's nothing going on in my mind.
Right.
Like it's just that it's kind of like a meditation. But outside of that, like you said,
But it's cool.
Carin, believe me, there's nothing going on in Kevin's mind either.
So meditation is an interesting thing because I'm a person of extremes.
Yeah.
So I either meditate in extremely hot sauna, steam, or go. And now's my favorite time because I go out in the cold.
Wow.
Because once you break concentration, you either get hot or cold.
Right.
And that's how I know it's not working.
Right.
And I got to refocus and really concentrate on my breathing. So where'd you grow up?
A little bit of everywhere. I was born in Harlem. Lived there for a small part of my life. I lived in Queens Village, Bushwick, Brooklyn, uptown Manhattan, almost every borough, I think, but Staten Island.
So let's just say you grew up in New York.
Yeah. All
New York
around
City
New York,
somewhere.
yeah.
And so you were born in Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the hospital in Harlem or did you live in Harlem?
Both. So born in Mount Sinai, Harlem, and then lived on 108th Street,
I think that's where Charlie Cifarelli was born.
Mount Sinai.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
that's
I believe so.
I think that's where he was born.
Nice.
And so you've always had this love for the city?
Yeah, I did. Growing up, I mean, a lot of people don't let their kids like go on the train very young, but I was like 9, 10 years old, taking the 6 train up to Harlem to go visit my family by myself.
And your parents were okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was a single mom. She worked a lot. She did train us very young to be very responsible. I mean, since I was in the 3rd grade, and my sister was in 2nd grade, we were walking to school by ourselves. So she didn't really have the choice. Like we had to grow up a little bit faster than normal. And taking the trips to Harlem was growing up even faster.
Is your mother still with us?
Yes.
So do you ever speak to her? It's like, Mom, what were you thinking? You let me walk the streets of the city alone.
Yeah, I mean, the way my family grew up, it was kind of like all the kids grew up fast, and it was just like let them learn. And it's crazy because I look at where the world is now, and back then, me being 8, 9, 10, taking the train to Harlem, I never felt not safe.
That's because you grew up there. Okay, that's a big thing. So if I drive into, say, Newark, there are places in Newark that I do not feel safe.
Yeah.
All right, I'm always on edge. But take me into Atlantic City. There is nowhere in Atlantic City that everybody's like, it's a horrible place. I'm like, it's just Atlantic City. It's always been bad.
Yeah.
but it gives you world skills.
Yeah.
Or
Situational awareness.
Yeah, exactly. So like kids today, they're playing, they're on social media all day or just playing video games or anything. They're not going to have situational awareness, like you said.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting lifestyle. So your playground was the biggest city in the world.
Yep.
The concrete jungle.
The concrete jungle.
Yep.
That's the stuff of Alicia Keys' songs.
Yeah.
Now, as you moved on, did you have any drive to go in any direction? Did you figure out what you wanted to do early?
Kind of. I knew I wanted to help somebody or being in the helping career to anybody. So I didn't know which direction at that time. And then I was like, well, I really like kids and I kind of like the medical field. And then someone's like, well, why don't you be a pediatrician? And I'm like, oh, that's kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So I'm good with school, but I kind of like got a little ADD, right? So it's hard to stay focused. So I'm really good with hands-on learning. So that's when I was like, maybe I could go take the EMT course. I could be in the medical field and then learn things behind closed doors while I continue that journey to become a pediatrician at the time. So that's kind of what I started to do. And then going through that journey, I spoke to a lot of nurses, a lot of doctors, and like, don't you want to be like a mom one day? Like, don't sell your whole life to being a doctor. You know, you give up a lot of freedom. Why don't you become a nurse or a nurse practitioner or a PA? Like, if you want to go for the doctor, go for it. But you give up so much of your life. You know, it's a big sacrifice. And so I thought about that. And because I have so much connection and love for my family and always wanting to be around them, I'm like, well, I really wouldn't want to sacrifice that big chunk of my life. So I'm like, all right, let me figure something else out. So then I was like, I'll be a nurse practitioner. And
still not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
And then I upgraded to paramedic. I loved working in the field. I kind of got a little comfortable there. I was still taking my classes, but very, very, very slowly. And then I took a break to try and regroup financially. And then there just became more barriers in between. And I was like, well, it's not a bad gig working in the street. You know, I'm still in the medical field. I'm still helping people.
You were riding the bus at the time?
Yeah.
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 So, see some nasty stuff going on in the city.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Without doubt.
Seen it all.
Yeah.
That's the best place to get like a big variety of calls, you know?
Hands-on training, like you said.
Exactly.
And your first year guaranteed every DOA you had was on the toilet. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, it's the holiday season. It's the most wonderful time of year, but it's not that way for everybody.
You know, sometimes the holidays bring up bad memories for people. Everybody has bad memories. You know, I lost my mom years ago, and the holidays are tough for me, and I went to therapy and talked to my therapist about it, and it really helped me through it.
I've benefited from therapy in so many different ways. It helps me get some of the really heavy stuff off of my chest so I can just move forward in life. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a shot, try BetterHelp.
It's completely online, it's convenient, and it's flexible.
So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/suffering for 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/suffering.
Some.
Yo,
yeah.
Oh,
And naked.
and naked, yeah. You go out of this world. Most of
The
them
way
go
you
out
came
naked.
in.
Yeah. You go out shitting in your pants, and
I
you
was
come in shitting in your pants, and you go out shitting in your pants.
I was just telling somebody a story that like my first year on the job, every DOA I had was on the toilet. It was almost like comedy because they're like, oh, they're on the toilet. Oh, I guess they're dead. They're done.
Yeah.
So we go to this call and it's like, where's your wife? Oh, she's on the toilet. I'm like, oh, God, here we go.
Yeah.
I walk up there and she's in diabetic shock. She's not dead, but she is in mid stride of going to the bathroom. And it was not, and she was a big gal.
Yeah.
And it was not pleasant.
Yeah.
And I had a sergeant walk in he was training somebody on FTO and he goes, oh, Donaldson, open the window. You get in there. And he goes and runs downstairs and she's like, we're not even there.
Wow.
Like we're not even there. And I think she had chili the night before. It was so
smells
bad.
are really, well, they were really hard for me. I still can't smell, but
You're lucky if you're going to continue with being a paramedic.
yeah. Before, I mean, any little smell and I'm just
I always said the worst smell to me is like the 2-week unattended death.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty
That's
my
the
God,
first time I
that is-
almost actually threw up.
That is the worst.
Well,
Yeah.
on that job, I'm going to pose this question to everybody here. What is the worst smell?
The DOA that's been there.
Or is that the one thing that would make you actively vomit?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
had two. I've had one inside the house and one in autopsy that was actually green like the Incredible Hulk. His skin was like the Incredible Hulk. It was like, did somebody paint him green? It was just the bacteria. And he was so bloated. And when she finally popped to get inside and all that came out, I had to leave. But there's a trick for anybody out there in the field. I started carrying Vicks
Vicks vapor rub.
Peppermints
I heard
always
that.
work.
Yeah.
right on your nose.
I used to have to go to a lot of autopsies.
Yeah.
And peppermints always worked well for me.
Yeah.
But at the point, like, they never bothered me because I saw them as a science experiment. I was able to separate their humanity
Yeah.
from them. It's a science experiment. Okay,
Yeah.
their rib cages. You forget that they used to be human. Mike, is there anything that made you actively vomit or come close?
You step in dog shit on the way to the call. So
Really?
I can't stand it. But no, seriously, the unattended death and autopsies. I mean,
Yeah.
autopsy. One of the first unattended deaths I went on, somebody went to mistake number one, step over the body. They hit the body and the body.
Ooh.
Maggots were coming out of the body.
Nice.
I'm like,
I've had that.
oh.
I always got it when somebody was throwing up. I cannot handle somebody throwing up around me.
You're gonna
Is
throw
it
up
the
too.
sound or the smell?
I think it's the sound.
Yeah.
It's the sound of somebody. I will immediately start dry heaving.
Yeah.
So there was a poor guy, and he was sick as a dog, and he's throwing up.
Yeah.
And my partner's in front of him. He's got a bucket in front of him, and he's and I'm behind him, and I'm trying not to make a noise. I'm like, it was so bad. I never actually vomited though.
Yeah.
Even when they cut, I've made people vomit in autopsies.
How'd you do that?
I started eating when they cut into the bowel tract
Oh God.
because it didn't bother me. So I would do it purposely because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And I would bring, meanwhile, somebody's loved one's dead. But
Yeah.
So I started.
Different mindset for emergency personnel.
I would eat crackers or
Yeah.
whatever I had. I'd take out a sandwich or something and I'd start eating it in front of them. I'm looking over the body with the sandwich and stuff, and you'd see people in the back of.
The guy who used to work with said the one thing he couldn't handle was shit out of water.
Although I did step in human shit, and that screwed me up psychologically.
Yeah, without doubt.
Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, I've had dogs my whole life, so
Yeah.
I've stepped in it millions of times.
Right.
The one time I stepped in human shit that I know of, I had to throw away my shoes. No matter how much
Yeah.
bleach I walked through, water, wet grass, didn't matter.
Yeah.
And
Once that smell gets in your nose, though, it stays there for
oh,
Yeah. That
You know-
one DOA, I tell you, I think that's stuck in my, like,
Yeah.
I kept in the back of my throat, in my hair. I tried to eat lunch after that, and I'm like, I just still smell it. I can't eat like this.
or the other thing is burning flesh. Have you ever gone to like a house fire?
Yeah.
You know, and the people they're actually almost still on fire.
Yeah. It's a
And
very weird
you're
smell.
grabbing them, and I had to pull a lady out of a house one time, and I had just like dead, burned skin all over my uniform.
Yep.
And it
that was
just never gets out of your nose.
Yep.
pulling a body out of the Passaic River. That one was pretty bad too, because the skin just peeled right off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the bacteria.
Yeah. So what drove you? So you're in this break. How did the FDNY come into the picture?
For my career,
Yeah.
when I was in the break for school.
Yeah. Well, when did it come in?
After I got my EMT certification, in the school that I got in Suffolk Community College, they had I think like orientation where somebody from FDNY came in, so the application was there, and I'm like, oh, why wouldn't I want to work for FDNY? It's like so
Coolest
much
job
more.
in the world.
Yeah. So I put in the application. It's such a long process, and I don't think I heard from them for about 3 years. And it was interesting at the time because my friend who went through the course with me also applied for FDNY, and he applied like the last possible hour that you can. And he got called and he got into the academy before me. And I'm like,
That's not
why
right.
didn't I get in with you? Like I had college credits. He didn't have college credits. I'm like, what the heck? So I was behind him and I thought I would never get in. And I kept calling when he told me the next class was going in. I kept calling the recruiter. I'm like, I'm ready. If you're putting a class in, I'm ready, because I didn't hear from them. And then the day before the class, I'm like, I called again. I left a message and I'm like, well, I guess I didn't get in. And then I got a message and I think somebody dropped out last minute. And I guess they were just like, this girl keeps calling. Just let her go in.
We're tired of hearing from her. Yeah.
So I think that's how I got into
Persistence
the
pays off.
academy. Yeah.
And then when you were in the academy, now you're in a very serious job. Mm-hmm. And I think when you apply for it, even as a police officer, it's pretty much the same thing. When you apply for it, the reality of the job doesn't hit you.
Nope.
No.
When did the reality hit you? Were you in the academy or when you got out?
I would say, honestly, not until I earned my paramedic patch, which was about 3 months after I was in the field as an EMT. I was also very young. I think I was 23 when I got in. Yeah, something like 22, 23. And being on the street as an EMT, I was only on the street for like 3 months or 6 months before I got to go into the paramedic class. And it wasn't after I became a paramedic that you just see your responsibility as a paramedic.
Yeah, you literally hold life and death in your hands.
100%.
And if you don't take that responsibility seriously, well, number one, you're not going to have a job for very long, but
Yeah.
and maybe end up in jail. But it's more than that.
Yeah. Like if something's going wrong, you don't have anybody to call.
Yeah, you're the person they call.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Well, as an EMT. So EMT, if they can't figure it out, if things start going south, they call the paramedics. But as a paramedic, you're it.
Well, that's how I always say, like when you're a cop and you go on a medical call, as soon as the EMTs get there, you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Now you're an EMT.
Yeah.
You're on a medical call. When the paramedics get there, it's like, oh, thank God.
When you're doing
the baton.
when you're doing CPR on a person and it's July and the sweat's dripping off you and the EMT show up, I'm like, all right, hire medical authority. See you later. Even though I was an EMT at the time, I'm like, well, you guys are it. I'm sorry.
Tag, you're it.
My back hurts or something.
Yeah.
It's an enormous amount of responsibility to take on, especially at 23. Because if I look back when I was 23, I don't think I was ready to take on that responsibility.
Yeah.
But you didn't go out? So FDNY has the medical services and it has the people who go out and are crazy and run into burning buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever sit on a fire truck or did you just go right into the other? I don't know how it works. This is ignorance.
No, it's not. A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't even know the difference between EMTs or paramedics, or sometimes they call us ambulance drivers. So you're not ignorant when it comes to that. It's 2 separate unions, and you have to take the test for to be a firefighter. So I used to joke, but it's probably not a good joke. I used to be like, I'm really good at making fires, but not like putting them out, I have so much respect for firefighters. You have to really love your job. Like, you becoming a firefighter, you putting yourself at risk, you're putting your fellow firefighters at risk, and then the person that you're going in to save is still at grave risk unless you know what you're doing. So I didn't have the passion for it. I love the camaraderie part of the firefighters. EMS doesn't really have that complete aspect yet, but firefighters do. But I knew my heart wasn't in it, so it would be better pay, way better pay, better camaraderie, but I didn't have the passion for it.
But there's a reason. Firefighters are in life and death situations where although you can be exposed to a life and death situation, they're much more rare. Those constant incidents of life and death, they bond people because people become brothers and sisters in foxholes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, it's a camaraderie.
Yeah.
It's a camaraderie aspect of it. Same thing in law enforcement. You're in a life or death situation, you need to trust your partner.
Yeah.
That's why so many soldiers are so close to one another.
Right.
But now, I'm sure it wasn't all death and horror. I'm sure you had some fun too, because if I already know the answer to this question, but I'm sure you said some stuff that you're glad nobody heard.
Oh, yeah. And I saw some stuff, people wouldn't believe you when they say you could write a book on the things that you've seen.
How many people slipped and fell and accidentally fell on a Coke bottle?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Accidentally.
Or
1 in a million shot, Doc.
Or the, the fire pokers?
Really?
Yeah.
Who the hell would say this is a good thing to stick up my ass?
I mean, the thing is maybe he thought it was a good thing to stick up, but you don't realize there's the other
hook on it.
Didn't they ever go fishing? That's how you catch a fish with a
Guess
barb.
not. He's from the city. They don't really fish.
They don't fish.
Yeah. But no, he slipped and fell.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
Of course he did. It's a. I can't even tell that one on the air. I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. So you go through. What do you think your most serious call was?
I mean, kids are always serious. And it's kind of hard to stay calm, but for some reason, being in the field for so many years, you kind of gain that practice. But it's hard to leave the job without taking that with you. So I think when it comes to that, there's always some lingering emotion and questions. If I could have done more, if I could have done better. So I would say that's what's the hardest for me. No, there's been a lot of difficult calls, and you kind of got to wrap your brain and puzzle piece a little bit.
The fire poker would be number one on my list.
Well, yeah, because you're not supposed to transfer somebody face down, right? So the biggest thing is
buns up, face down.
Well, you gotta. Sorry.
Yeah. Wow. And it's funny.
Here, have a seat over here.
Because normally I'm a little bit more chivalrous, and I wouldn't say these things, but you're a paramedic. I mean, you've heard it all, you've seen it all, and some of the humor. But that's the way you have to cope with it.
Yeah.
What was your? Now going back to the crafts thing, did you go home after work after a difficult call and knit a sweater or do whatever kind of craft you wanted to do?
You know what? No, and that probably would help. De-stress a little bit.
I was going to say, you have to have some kind of decompression.
Yeah.
I
work the graveyard shifts too. So, going home with the sun up, probably would have been better to do some of that before I would just jump right into sleep. But no, I didn't. I would just kind of keep that to my days off. But that would have been a good stress reliever.
Did you notice any personality changes because you were holding it in?
Yeah, I think you get a little bit more on edge, and not to lash out on somebody, but you're holding on to something. And there's they kind of grew a little bit from this, but sometimes it's like if you talk about it, you're not strong enough. But I think they kind of evolved a little bit to not make you feel like that in the fire department. They do give you the opportunity and the resources to talk about these things, but I think it's a little bit of pride. It's like, nah,
I'm good.
Well,
Yeah.
we talk about it all the time, mental health issues in the first responder field. You're afraid to actually say that something affects you
Yeah.
because now you're going to be labeled.
Yeah.
Is it any easier for a woman to speak about an issue that she's having? Because I know for men it's really tough, but I obviously, Mike, is it hard for women?
A little late on that one, but I got it.
Is it easier for women to speak about to woman or go to a professional?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're just more emotional beings, so it's just easier to.
I can verify that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder to speak to people that aren't in the medical fields or the first responder fields. So you just don't want to put, it's hard for them to take that kind of information in. But to go to other coworkers, you could talk about the call, but I think the men just kind of I'm good and we don't need to talk about it.
Now, did you actually go to other female coworkers and talk to them about it? Or
No.
you just didn't?
No, you just held it in.
Just held it in. Yeah, that's got to be rough.
Now,
Yeah.
did you love it?
I did.
Yeah, you did love it.
Yeah, every day is a new challenge, new puzzle.
But then there comes a time, and this is a tough topic here because this is something I really, really want to talk about. Unfortunately, we can't. You at some point had to separate from the FDNY, a job that you loved, a job that you probably gave you a lot of purpose. And how long did you do?
How long?
How long were you on the FDNY?
A little over 10 years.
A little over 10 years, and you have to separate. Do you
Yeah.
want to give us a little window into your separation?
Yeah. So I got terminated over policies that are still being litigated. Yes.
What's your time frame
This was around 2000 when the lawsuit or when I was terminated.
when you were terminated?
Finally terminated in 2021.
So 2021, our audience is full of smart people, so I'm going to let you infer to that one, and we won't go any further with that because obviously if it's current litigation, hopefully I think it's going to play itself out.
Yeah.
I really, really do. But I'm pulling for you because it was a travesty.
Yeah.
It really was. It hurt my heart to hear all that stuff going on.
Yeah.
But you're here.
Yep.
You made it through. You stuck to your values, which is a very, very rare thing in this world.
Yeah.
You have some core values that you held on to. How hard was it to hold on to those values?
I don't even know if I could describe it. I mean,
You probably went back and forth.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
The
Like
seesaw
mentally,
battle.
emotionally, I call my cousin every day. Should I just do this? Should I not? And I'm not even joking. I could show you a call log. Every day I called her and I'm like, let me just do this. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to feel forced into anything. And so, every single day up until the day that I got terminated was a struggle. And again, just to go back, 5 minutes ago, it was a job that I begged for, right? Just kept calling, I'll take the next class. If somebody calls out, I'll go,
But that speaks to how strong your resistance was to this particular policy.
Yeah.
And then so you're separated and you're left out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But the reason why we're here, because while you're separated, you have something hit you over the head like a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody what that was?
And it wasn't a fire poker, was it?
Yeah. No, thank goodness. A little PTSD with that one, right? I was actually diagnosed with Hodgkins lymphoma. So it's so weird to go into how I even figured it out, So just a series of events. So let's go back a little bit further. So
And you don't have health insurance at that point.
No health
So that
insurance.
just adds another wrinkle on top of already difficult situations.
More drama in your life that you don't need.
Yeah. So I while I'm working the streets during a very difficult time, I lost my grandmother. And 5 months later, I lost my cousin to suicide. A year after that, I lost my uncle, who I'm very, very close with. A month after that, I lost my job. A month after that, I lost my best friend. So I just had this
downward slide.
Yeah.
Like a what's next, what's next attitude.
Yes. And in that time, like, this was before I even had the diagnosis. So it's like, what do I process first?
Yeah.
Right. And I didn't have time to process that because I just lost my career. So it's like, I can't pay rent. I can't pay my car. Like, I can't pay my light bill. Every day I'm like, and before I was terminated, I was placed on leave without pay, and they told you can't work.
Yeah.
You can't even work during that. So it went about 4 months before I was actually terminated that I wasn't allowed to work. So no income, no loggable income.
Boy, they really tried to force you.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm behind on almost all my bills. Every time I could like babysit or bake a cake for somebody, I would put a little money here, a little money there to just not get my car repossessed, not get kicked out. Like I didn't need another obstacle. So like all those emotional traumas like kind of got pushed on the back burner, because just I was in survival mode.
Right.
You're
still living in the city at this time?
Mm-hmm.
No job, living in the city.
Yeah.
Holy cow. At rent of $10,000 a month, whatever the heck the rent is.
Did you park in a garage too, or in the streets? Because those garages are.
Thank God I was in the streets.
They're awfully expensive too.
Yeah. But still, right, my rent was expensive. My car was expensive, which was a lease at the time. And then because I was so late on leases, they wouldn't renew my lease. So I had to finance. But because I was so late on leases, my car went up an extra like $260. I'm like, well, I couldn't even pay it at this rate. Now you're going to give me this rate.
When was the first signs that something internally wasn't right?
I got sick around 2020, obviously, the way everybody else got sick. And after that, I had so much issues. I kept getting these sinus infections that would just last like 3 months. And finally, when it would try and drain from my system, I would wake up and both my eyes would be caked shut. And I was like, do I have like double pink eye? Like I couldn't even open them, So I'm like, what's going on? So
and being a medical professional, it's probably working against you at this point because you kind of know what's happening.
Trying to self-diagnose.
Yeah. So, and then you don't really go to the doctor because you just kind of like treat yourself. But I'm like, there's something, and I said this from the beginning, there's something wrong with my lymphatic system, right? And why I said that just out of the blue, it's not like I have diagnostic testing or anything. I'm like, my lymphatic system's not working. It's not draining properly. I keep having these, I've never had sinus infections before, and they keep coming and they're lasting a little bit longer. So I kept having those issues. I still can't smell to this day. So I have a lot of medical issues post that. So fast forward a little bit, I get some kind of virus and my whole neck swells up. And when that finally goes down, I still see like a bulge on the right side. I'm like, well, that's not good, but I don't have any medical insurance, right? I can't go to the doctor. Then a couple months later, I feel another nodule. And I'm like, that's not good. And just to tap in a little bit to my spiritual side, I get a lot of messages from spiritual people, from loved ones that passed. Mainly in my dream. I don't see anybody walking around here,
Yeah, just let me know if there's anybody behind us.
Yeah, no, not like that for me. So I had 2 dreams. And the first dream, in the dream, I was talking to my cousin I'm very close with. And I'm like, hey, I have cancer. And she was like, who says it like that? And I'm like, that's okay. I have cancer. And then the second dream was my foster mother. If we could go back into that if you want later. And she had cancer. And she said, I only want you to treat me. And I'm like, but I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, I only want you to treat me holistically. And I was like, okay, but I don't know what I'm going to do. And I did in the dream, and I cured her of her cancer. And so when I felt that second nodule, I said in my head, I'm like, that's cancer. And so when I lost my second job,
That's a whole nother episode.
So when I lost my second job, I applied for Medicaid, and I went straight to the cancer and blood specialist. And I was like, this is going to sound crazy, but I have cancer. And he's like, all right, let's do the testing. And came back cancer in my lymphatic system.
So what was that gut shot like?
You know what? I think maybe because of the spirituality and kind of where I was, I wasn't shocked. It's kind of like I knew. You were just confirming what
you already knew.
Yeah. And so I literally just sat there and I was like, okay, what's the next steps? And so he told me what he wanted to do with Western medicine, put a port, do chemo. And I was like, all right, well, we had to set up for the lymphaectomy to take it out to get a full diagnosis. And in that time, I started researching like all the people that did holistic care. And I started researching people's journeys that did Western medicine. And when I watched the journeys of people with Western medicine, I would just cry. And, you know, I'm like, cancer's not easy. You know, they feel sick, they look sick, they're just down in spirits. And then when I looked at the holistic journey, I'm like, these people get to keep their health and they're healing their cancer. And so like that opened the door and I started doing more and more and more research. And I found a really good clinic that I hope I can make it to do the treatment for that instead of, if I don't have to do chemo.
So radiation, and I'm throwing stuff off the top of my head because I don't know this for sure, but I believe radiation was invented somewhere or brought to prominence somewhere in the 1830s. And then chemo, I think, is the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. So take chemo, for instance. 100 years we've had chemo. Mm-hmm. Almost 200 years we've had radiation. Yet we still have a cancer issue.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know there's obvious advances in radiation and chemo, but it doesn't seem to. I have my own theories that it doesn't seem to be working. Yeah. It just seems to be prolonging because the cancer survival rate hasn't changed all that much. Mm-hmm. I know, you know, the only way to do it is cut the cancer out. Yeah. You know, in everyday life, not just cancer itself, but with everything, you cut the cancer out and that's how you heal. But
I have my own theory about cancer, but I'm not going to get into
the money.
We'll talk after this.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, I'm not a tinfoil hat wearer, right. But I mean, something that's been around for 200 years, if it worked, it would have worked by now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But how about the common cold?
Yeah.
They can't cure the common cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you look, like just having a medical background, something that we were taught day one in medical school, right, is what they say to us is don't treat the monitor. The monitor that we carry, that we could see the heart rate, the oxygen, the waveform for their breathing. Don't treat that. Treat the person and find the root cause. That's drilled into us from day one. So if you look at something like chemo, it doesn't get to the root cause of people's cancer. And it doesn't even kill the cancer stem cells. So you could remove tumors and you could do chemo and radiation, but it doesn't actually kill those cancer stem cells.
Shrinks them, right?
Doesn't do anything to them. So it can shrink tumors, but it's not going to kill those cancer stem cells. Everybody has cancer cells in them. Doesn't mean that it can evolve to cancer. But
people have been telling me I've been a cancer my whole life.
I think I told you that yesterday.
No, I'm a legitimate cancer on some people's lives.
Yeah.
Just talk to my wife; she'll tell you. You got to be hopeless at this point. Like what am I going to do? Obviously, I don't believe that this is the path I want to take with traditional Western medicine. Holistic is, it's a crapshoot with holistic stuff. You know, yeah. I remember, I don't know if you ever saw Man on the Moon about Andy Kaufman. He was going down to South America. He had cancer, and he's going down to South America, and he's watching these witch doctors take chicken livers and act like they're taking it out of people, and these people believed it. Mm-hmm. But, at what point, what do you grab onto at this point? Yeah, so the thing with my cancer is they say it's, quote unquote, the most curable. If this is the cancer you're going to have, you should have this one. Yeah. The good cancer.
You have the good cancer.
You have the good cancer.
So
you'll be fine.
Yeah. With that, I guess I kind of feel like I have the luxury of time and room to play with, right? So. And you're young, which is working for you. So I have a little bit of that, but then going into this experience of going to holistic, I actually spoke to 2 different people who have remarkable stories. One girl was diagnosed stage 4 terminal brain cancer that metastasized to her breast, her liver. The doctor told her she had, I don't want to give the wrong time frame, but 3 to 6 months, let's say, to live. And he wouldn't do chemo because it wasn't going to work for her. And so she had a little bit of a pity party and she cried. She's like, I guess I'm going to die. And she accepted it. And then she woke up one day and she's like, no, this is not the end of my life. And so she found these different holistic therapies that she could do. She did find a doctor to give her a combo of a low dose chemo. She is cancer-free this day, walking around for years.
That's crazy.
So you say holistic, and it's a very broad term.
Right.
When you talk about holistic treatments for your particular type of cancer, what are you talking about?
So specifically for the clinic I want to go to, they have like 7 key principles that they go by. So it's non-toxic cancer treatments. So just one of the many therapies that they do, just to give an example, is they give you a non-toxic pill that attaches to your cancer cells and causes them to be sensitive to light and sound. And if you have tumors that are visible, they can emit light to that one. If you have more deep, they can follow a catheter directly up to that tumor and then emit light or sound to start to shrink it. But their 7 key principles are non-toxic cancer treatments, spirituality, immunotherapy, oxygenation, detoxification, nutrition, and then restoring gut microbiome. So they have all these different things that they dive into. And it's interesting because something that Western doctors won't ask you, but holistic doctors would, is why do you think you have cancer? And that question is like, it kind of hits you, right?
I was going to say that's a smack in the face question.
Yeah, because Western doctors are going to say, not your fault. You didn't do anything to get this. If you have anybody in your family, they're going to blame it on your genetics. If you don't, they're just going to say, it happens to anybody.
Luck of the draw.
Go eat ice cream.
The men in my family, so it's funny you said it, because the men in my family die in their early 80s, the majority of them, of cancer. Like that's the Irish background. It's usually skin cancer that gets us. But they die. So I've kind of accepted that growing up. Like I'm 49 now, so I got 30 years left. I'm all right.
I can make it to my 80s.
Yeah, I can make it my 80s. I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. But I've done research on cancer treatments. They pull the oil from the cannabis. I have a friend of mine, his name's Lee Whitley. Lee Whitley at one time was one of the biggest drug dealers in the United States. He got caught taking 30 tons of marijuana over the border. So he's no longer he's no longer allowed in the United States. He's in Canada. But he administers the oil derivatives. Yeah. And I was talking to him, and I asked him, because there's always side effects, including diarrhea, which is the side effect of every medication. Yeah. I asked him, I said, so what's the side effects of this? And he had told me, he goes, you're going to get high as shit.
You're going to laugh.
But
you're going to get the munchies.
Yep.
But his success rate is remarkable.
Yeah.
And he's willing to give it away. Give the treatment away. He wants people he wants to try to eradicate cancer. And which is counterintuitive to the Western medical field. It's give me money, and you'll be cured.
Yeah.
So
of that cancer.
And
then you get another
until you get another one. Yeah.
So where is this treatment that you got to go get?
This one is in Mexico.
Okay.
He has this doctor has 2 clinics. One's more if you're more sick, and the other one is if you're.
It's not Ibuprofen or ayahuasca, is it?
No, but I did do ayahuasca before.
Oh. We're going to talk afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. DMT, ayahuasca. I was just talking.
That's what Aaron Rodgers did, ayahuasca, right?
So, did he?
Yeah, I believe
that wouldn't surprise me. But I was just one of the guys on Instagram Live tonight. He was a St. Croix, Wisconsin officer.
Okay.
And he got terminated by his own fault. He admits it. But he went down and did the DMT and I think he did ayahuasca. And he said it was a life-changing experience.
Yeah. It's like 1,000 therapy sessions in one, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing. You face so many things in your past, in your present.
Next week's Suffering Podcast will be in Mexico.
Let's go. An ayahuasca clinic.
We licking toads and shit. So you got to head down to Mexico, and obviously, are you working now?
No.
You're not working, so you're unemployed. So there's your roadblock. So
And it's a long walk from here too.
Yeah. What's your plan on trying to get down there?
We've been fundraising. I have a couple of friends that are trying to help push that.
We'll give your fundraising opportunities out.
So I have a GoFundMe. It's not very favorable to people, but I have other options. So my GoFundMe's with my name. That's Carin Rosado. It's CarinRosado. And then I do have my Zelle and Venmo linked to my email, which is my first and last name at Gmail.
We'll put up a lower third right below you. You'll see it during the episode when this airs. You'll be right there. Just go like this.
Yeah.
Just go like this, and Andrew will make the magic happen. There you
right
go.
There.
Carin.
Yeah, Carin, if you call the R.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have those options for people that don't want to donate to GoFundMe.
But now, you obviously hold a lot of hope for this treatment.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask this question. I know it's going to be a difficult question for you. Let's say you go down there, you're able to get down there to get the treatment, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
What now?
I was very well aware that that's a possibility. And I said, at the very least, this can at least help my immune system to be able to handle something like chemo. Or maybe it regresses me to stage 2, which is a different form of treatment.
What stage are you now?
3.
You're at stage 3. Now, I was a little bit ignorant of Hodgkins lymphoma and stuff like this. Is it possible for your body to fight this on its own without medication?
Yep.
So it is. Your body could eradicate it on its own. Mm-hmm. Because lymphoma is not anything new.
No.
It's been around for millions of years, probably. No.
And it's interesting because the differential diagnoses for Hodgkin's lymphoma is people who are HIV positive or have Epstein-Barr, which I have negative on both of those. But what's interesting is when I got sick with that virus back in 2022, which is a virus, was the cascade of a lot of my medical issues. But nobody wants to look into the correlation with that.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And correlation's not causation. I'm not saying it completely caused, but I would say it set me up.
But you're looking at it from a medical field too, and you're seeing. I'm sure you've seen enough people pass for cancer.
Yep.
And did you ever lose hope at all?
Yeah. It was just one day when I spoke to my sister one day, and she kind of was like, "This is a scam," and she's like, "You're gonna die." And
your sister told you it was gonna die? Wow.
Yeah. And I was just like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You're not doing the right research, but whatever." And then a few hours later, my cousin called me. I tried to vent with her, and she called me back. She's like, "Well, I was looking into what she said and this," and so she kind of jumped on that bandwagon. And then a really good friend of mine, who I really trusted in the medical field, I spoke to him, and the minute I mentioned holistic care, I mean, he just dug into me. He told me the reason why it's only 95% curable is because the other 5% mess around in Mexico and die, and he just, really rammed it into me. And I think that was the hardest I've ever cried since I got the diagnosis.
Rory, why'd you do that to her?
Yeah.
That's not cool.
That's not nice.
That's really not cool, man.
That's why he's not allowed in here.
Yeah, exactly. You're in timeout.
Yeah.
He's sitting in that cell over there with Andrew.
But it's amazing the advancements in quote unquote, it's called what it is, hippie medicine. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks it's hippie medicine.
Yeah.
Psychedelic.
Yeah.
So I've recently got into doing cryotherapy.
Nice. It's hard.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely, and I bring my kids. I bring my son. They're football players, and they get bumps and bruises and stuff. The kids on my team, So when I saw the benefits of cryotherapy, I got out of there feeling like Superman. Mm-hmm. I slept amazing. All it does is just freeze you.
Yeah.
So we had our quarterback hurt his shoulder. I said, okay, take him to cryotherapy. He's 13, right? Yeah. No, he's 13, right? And he went there after cryotherapy. He wasn't able to throw like he normally throws, but he went from not being able to lift his arm up to here. Right. Or you have the harmonic egg from Abundant Healing. I went in and sat in a harmonic egg.
Yeah.
And that, you want to talk about hippie medicine, that is true hippie medicine.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Again, slept really, really good, very peaceful, quieted my mind a little bit, salt therapy. I'm well aware of that stuff. And as much as I am resistant, my conservative mind is resistant to that stuff, there's truth to it. There's benefit to it.
Yeah. I think people lack the patience. And you go back to your roots and that type of treatment and care, it's a longer process. You know, it doesn't happen overnight, and people don't want to do the deep change. So if you do chemo or radiation, you don't have to change anything, right? Go home and eat ice cream. Go home and have candy. You don't have to change your diet. You know, go do. You don't have to do any inner work or spirituality, or look at yourself in the mirror and say, let's face these traumas that you haven't faced.
Face the suffering.
The suffering.
Yes.
You don't have to heal any of that. Continue to have those toxic, you know, things lingering in your body, and just do chemo, and it kills the good and the bad cells.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Right. So anything good that's keeping you alive is now dead. But, you know, the bad stuff's dead, too.
Yeah.
So you're all right.
So.
You're all right.
But I mean, you see some of these people that are on chemo too, you know, losing their hair and.
That was a big thing for me, especially because I'm a redhead. We're going extinct, guys. Like,
Wait, so you're half Puerto Rican with a red head.
Yeah.
What's going on here? What's the other half? Is it Irish?
part Irish, part German.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, at least you good half. That's all.
Yeah.
So where can
So what are you saying about losing hair? I mean, you know, I'm getting offended by this now.
Well, you did have cancer.
Yeah, sitting right next to me.
I told you. I've been a cancer in a lot of people's lives. I told you this. I'm not shy about it. So where can our audience find you? And I also want you to give out those links to your GoFundMe and your email. And I wanted you to give out all that stuff as well.
Yeah, so I'm on social media. Not so much Facebook, but I do have it. Instagram, Facebook, social media is with my name, Carin Rosado. You could watch my journey through this. My Zelle and Venmo is with my email. Or you could just send, and maybe you have advice or you have treatments that you know of if there's anybody out there. So you could just send me messages. Or you could, if you can donate, it's linked with my email as well. And then the GoFundMe, you could also search with my name.
Was it Carin Rosado at gmail.com?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we're coming to the end of this thing here, and you fought one battle after another. It's kind of like a Amanda Coleman type situation.
Yeah, no kidding.
But you have a remarkable attitude to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, that's amazing.
Thank you.
You've had a smile on your face the entire time.
Yeah.
But you've had to learn something.
She's looking at these faces.
How could you not?
I'm surprised you didn't start.
Yeah.
What made you throw up? Your faces. And you've gone through all this amount of suffering. It's had to teach you something.
Yeah.
So what do you think your suffering has taught you?
I think when you're going through suffering, it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole of negativity and say, why me? Why me? And I had maybe 24 hours of that. Why me? Why did I get cancer? I thought I've, ate good and exercised. And then it changed to why not me?
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's a time for everything. And I think the way the world is going now, why not somebody like me to be able to handle something like this, even in my family, to show them that there's alternate ways to healing, and it just, after having a little bit of doubt, it kind of taught me to just stay true to myself, go back to my core values, So if you want to talk a little bit about the spirituality after that downfall of the all that negativity with friends, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was pregnant and getting ready to give birth. And pregnancy in a dream symbolizes new life, new journey. And everybody surrounding me was like, Carin, just lay down, just give birth here, just do it. And so I ran away to the woods. And I gave birth by myself in the woods. And when I was ready, I came back with the baby. And I just said to everybody, I'm sorry, I just had to do it my way. And so that kind of just brought me back, like, I got to do this my way, guys.
You know who did it his way? Frank Sinatra.
And Usher.
Yeah, but I wouldn't sleep with Frank Sinatra. I can't thank you enough for coming in here and talking about this, because you are what this show is all about. It's overcoming adversity. You're overcoming things. You're succeeding in the face of enormous adversity, overcoming unbelievable odds that would make most people lie down and just die.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you. I'm pulling for you, and we're going to try to pull some resources in order to try to get you to the treatment that is best suited for you.
Thank you.
And then you're going to come back when you're cancer-free, right?
Absolutely. I can't wait to tell you.
I think your positive attitude is going to work wonders for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, you're such a vibrant person. You have such a great outlook on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing in fighting this.
The power of the mind.
And you have it.
Yeah.
That's why I have no power.
You got no mind.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Lymphoma with Carin Rosado. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Quieting the mind comes in many forms. Fire pokers. Fire pokers.
Fire brokers. Say that 3 times, please.
You've got to put in the work. Sometimes you just got to say, why not me? But most importantly, just do it your way.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this episode. Go to popple.com for a digital business card. Put in the code TSP20 for 20% discount. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
OnlyFans.
Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And, of course, follow The Suffering Podcast. If you like what you're seeing, ring the bell, hit the like button. Please comment and subscribe. And we're going to see you on the next episode.